Hey there, guys. So I want to thank you, excuse me, I want to thank you for taking the time to check out today's live stream. So, as always, of course, I do want to mention a few things before we do get started with this stream. So, of course, if you have not watched my streams before, or if you are new to what I share, I do have a website that you can check out on all that I have to offer related to online fitness coaching. I always keep this website updated as often as possible so that you have the latest information, of course, related to my online fitness coaching, but also at the same time learning more about what I do have to offer when it comes to other aspects of my fitness, of course, itself, and then also some free fitness, nutrition, and recovery related advice, which I have a fitness blog that I upload to each and every Friday. And then I do have an email list that you can sign up for where I basically share some of the latest offers that I have going on with my coaching, as well as a free email newsletter each and every Monday. And then I also make sure to send out reminders of the latest live streams, any type of events that are going on. And of course, guys, I always try to give you guys some free information that you can take with you that's really valuable and that you can make the most of. So I did want to share that. Again, it's bponlinefitness.com. When you go to my Facebook page, my link for my website is actually on my sort of about me section, and you can check it out there. Another thing too that I will mention is that I do these streams every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time here on Facebook. They do get archived to YouTube, so if you do miss any streams that I do, including the one that I have today, and then either any of my streams I've had in the previous weeks, I do try to archive them and really share them. I've also been working on archiving my TikToks. So I have been able to get my TikTok streams to re-upload those so you can watch them later as well. And then, of course, I do want to mention that I do YouTube lives every other Thursday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, so you can check out those as well. But with all that being said, guys, I just wanted to share that before I actually got started with the stream itself. So, what we're going to be going over are strength plateaus, and of course, why this doesn't necessarily mean muscle plateaus themselves. So, in this topic, going to be going over a few different points that you can think about when it comes to the difference between strength as well as muscle, because there is a difference in both of these methods themselves. So again, strength plateaus don't always mean muscle growth has stopped. So muscle size itself can increase before strength noticeably improves. So there is somewhat of a lapse between your muscle being gained as far as like the hypertrophy and the overall appearance itself versus the strength that you feel when you are lifting and performing workouts. So, new muscle tissue takes time to translate into that higher force production. So, better technique itself is creating future strength gains. So, improved movement efficiency is going to come before adding more weight. So, your nervous system may need to adapt over time, and coordination and stability and motor learning all, of course, are going to contribute to long-term strength. And that's why, as I've mentioned before, in performing workouts, we do need to be intentional with how we perform workouts because this will translate to the results that we see, of course, in our physique, in our physique and appearance itself, but also in our overall strength. So, recovery itself is going to influence performance at the same time. So, when you have poor sleep and poor nutrition, and that is accumulated all at one time, this is where fatigue can sort of temporarily mask your true strength. So, progress, of course, isn't measured by weight alone, but by more repetitions, having better control as you're performing workouts, a greater range of motion, and improved training quality are going to be the signs that you are moving forward in the right direction. So, again, the key point you have to be aware of is that both muscle and strength are separate in a lot of ways. And when I talk about muscle, what I mean is your overall physique. Whereas when we're talking about strength, we're talking about our ability to lift the weight, how much force we can place on the weight, and things of that nature. So the next point I want to go over is on the topic of, just a second, better technique can build more muscle without more weight. So improved technique itself is going to keep tension on the target muscle. So better body positioning, how you especially start out in the workout is going to matter into the reps that you perform throughout the duration of the workout. And so that positioning, along with that controlled movement, is going to reduce compensation from surrounding muscles. So, like what I've mentioned with a lot of the workouts that we perform, each workout is going to have your main sort of primary muscle that's being engaged. And then you have those stabilizer muscles that are helping to support the primary muscle. So you have to keep that in mind that you want to focus on having that primary muscle be the major lifter and not having those other muscles trying to compensate for that muscle. So a full range of motion is going to increase muscle fiber recruitment. And again, keep in mind that what a full range of motion means is that you're going through the entire rep without cutting the rep short. So that means going through each three different phases that oftentimes happen in a workout. You're lifting, you're pausing, and you're lowering phase, and going through those phases in a controlled manner. So moving through a controlled, complete range of motion is going to allow more muscle fibers to contribute to each repetition. Like what I've discussed before, when we focus on a slower, controlled tempo and a slower amount of reps, we have more of those muscle fibers that get activated. Whereas if we're relying specifically on momentum, we're not allowing all of those muscle fibers to be engaged. So less are being activated. So the more that you slow down, the more you are allowing for muscle growth to happen. So slowing the lowering phase is going to increase mechanical tension. So controlling the eccentric, which is known as the lowering portion of the workout, of the lift challenges the muscle longer without adding that extra weight. So this of course goes into the concept of progressive overload, which is gradually increasing your intensity to help in aiding in muscle gain. So when you slow down reps, you don't have to constantly think of increasing your weight each time because that is basically another form of progression in itself, if that makes sense. So when you're reducing momentum, this is making every repetition work harder. So swinging or bouncing is going to shift the workload away from the muscles you're trying to develop. Like what I've mentioned before, if you swing the weight versus lifting with intention, you notice a complete difference in how heavy that muscle, or how heavy I should say, that weight is going to feel. So there's a complete difference when you control the weight that you're lifting versus having momentum and swinging the weight at the same time. So those are two separate things. So consistency and technique makes progress measurable. So performing each repetition the same way is going to allow you to accurately judge improvements in strength, endurance, and muscle growth. So like what I've mentioned before, it really helps to keep a track of what you're doing in your workouts, the reps that you're performing, the sets you're performing, as well as how long you are staying in performing the tempo in these workouts, as well as the weight you're lifting itself. I know that sounds like a lot to keep track of, but whenever you start to get a grasp on all of these different aspects of your routine, it makes it easier for you to really progress more efficiently. So, the hidden muscle building value of repeating the same weight. So, like what I've mentioned before, when it comes to progress, we don't necessarily have to always increase the weight in our workouts. There's different ways that we can progress. And one of those is focusing on using the same weight and basically mastering that weight that we're lifting. So repeated loads are going to improve movement quality. So performing the same weight consistently is going to give you the opportunity to refine your technique, reduce that wasted movement, and place more tension on the target muscles. So in your workouts, you want to generally stay with a specific amount of weight for at least a few weeks and mastering that weight. So when you know that you can sort of increase the volume you're placing on, and adding more resistance is all determined by how much you've been able to master the technique in that workout. That makes sense. So if you're getting to a point, let's say you're doing a rep range like focusing on hypertrophy. So generally hypertrophy, again, what that means is muscle gain. So if your goal is on muscle gain in particular, you usually perform around 8 to 12 reps in that sort of particular goal. So let's say whenever you started, you were lifting, it could be any type of way. So let's say when we started out, we're lifting around, let's say 60 pounds as far as for dumbbells. Or we could say, like a barbell workout. So this could be done in many different ways. So let's say that we're using 60 pounds on both sides for a barbell. So what we're going to do is try to max out our reps that we're performing with that particular weight. So until that weight starts to become easy, then that's when we would add more resistance, if that makes sense. So let's say that our first week we're only reaching to about 8 reps in our workout. And then we come up to the next week and we're reaching about maybe 9, almost 10 reps. And then in the next week, we're reaching 12 reps. And then in that following week, we're continuing to reach 12, or in the following weeks, we're reaching 12 reps. When we're continuously maxing out those reps is when we would kind of increase the weight that we're doing. And that's sort of how progression works, is that you're really mastering that movement and then at the same time you're mastering the weight you're lifting. So mechanical tension is going to increase without increasing the load itself when you focus on using the same weight and again focusing on control. So better control, a fuller range of motion, and stronger muscle contractions make the same weight more effective for hypertrophy. Consistency is going to improve mind muscle connection, which is how you are able to be more intentional with how you perform the workout. So, familiar weights are going to allow you to focus less on simply surviving the lift and more on feeling the intended muscle performing the work. So, thinking about the muscle that's being engaged, being intentional, and being fully aware of what you're doing is going to make a major difference as well when you focus on using that same weight and focusing on slowing down in your workouts. So the body is going to adapt to quality and not just heavier numbers. So if you're performing more controlled reps, maintaining better form, or at the same time accumulating more quality volume with the same weight, you're still creating a strong muscle building stimulus. So that's what you have to think about, is that you're focusing on how you control that weight in the exercise. So the next point is recovery can mask strength while supporting growth. So muscle repair, of course, is going to require energy and resources during periods of heavy training. So your body is going to prioritize repairing damaged muscle fibers, which can temporarily reduce that peak strength. So accumulated fatigue can hide your performance. So even when muscles are adapting, fatigue in your muscles in the nervous system can make weights feel heavier than usual. So again, there's sort of a lapse in your physique itself, your overall muscle, as well as the strength. So there's a lapse between those. So growth is going to happen during recovery. So, like what I've mentioned time and time again, is that what you do outside of your workouts matters, whether that be getting proper sleep, that be your nutrition, making sure that you are, of course, keeping a track of your nutrition, as well as staying hydrated. All of those different aspects are going to influence your growth and your routine. So again, it's not during the workout. So every training session is of course going to create stimulus, but muscle tissue is repaired and strengthened afterward through proper nutrition, hydration, and sleep. So performance often rebounds after adequate recovery. So that strength will come back after you have a good recovery period. Many lifters experience noticeable strength improvements after a deload week or several days of quality recovery because accumulated fatigue has been reduced. So, when you spend a little bit of time lowering your intensity, so if you've not heard me talk about what a deload is a deload is where you intentionally lower the intensity in your workouts, basically to have a recovery period, sort of. So you're still doing structured workouts, but you're doing them with the intention of lowering your intensity. So you're not really intentionally thinking about progressing for that particular week. You're slowing down a bit to let your body recover, if that makes sense. So you're still doing exercise, but you're not doing it with the same force that you've been doing when you're focusing on progression. So when you have those periods where you slow down a bit, you'll notice a big jump in your strength that following week because you gave your body time to rest and recover. So why muscle size and strength don't always increase at the same speed? So again, muscle growth is dependent on building tissue. Hypertrophy occurs as muscle fibers repair and adapt to consistent training. Again, hypertrophy itself means muscle growth. It's basically just another term for muscle growth and muscle gain. And they are going to adapt to consistent training, proper nutrition, and recovery. So this process can continue even when your lifting numbers temporarily stall. So strength relies heavily on your nervous system. So your brain and your nervous system must learn to recruit muscle fibers efficiently, coordinate movement, and produce force. So a lot of your strength side of things is happening with how you are acting in your workouts, how you are controlling the weight, how you are really able to produce force in the workouts. Whereas on the other hand, your muscle growth is oftentimes happening with what you're doing post workout, if that makes sense. So a lot of your strength, of course, is happening with your workouts, then hypertrophy itself and muscle gain is happening with your post workout recovery because your body is rebuilding from there. So again, your brain and nervous system must learn to recruit muscle fibers efficiently, coordinate movement, and produce force. So fatigue, stress, or poor recovery can slow strength gains without stopping muscle growth. So better technique can build muscles without adding weight. So improving exercise execution, increasing time and retention, and maintaining better control is creating a stronger growth stimulus even if you're using the same load. So like what I've mentioned before, progression can happen without constantly having to increase weight in your workouts. So small performance improvements can add up. So this is one thing that I do mention to my clients a lot of times is that when you think about your progress, you have to think about the small improvements that you're making outside of just trying to focus on, well, I didn't get this far this week, or, just focusing on, I didn't do too well on one particular day. Whereas you have to think about all of these different improvements adding up. So small improvements are going to add up in a big way as you move forward. So one extra repetition in your workouts matters. Completing even one additional quality rep is going to increase training volume and create stronger stimulus for muscle growth. So this better technique is going to build better muscle. So cleaner movement patterns keep tension on the target muscle and reduces wasted energy. Improved control is increasing time under tension, slowing the lowering phase and eliminating momentum can make the same weight significantly more effective. So you have to keep that in mind as well. But those small improvements are going to add up even if they feel insignificant in the moment. So nutrition and sleep may be driving your plateau. So this is something that I've mentioned many times before is that when we really look at the bigger picture of our routine and when we feel like we're not making progress and growth, is that a lot of that can sort of stem from what we do outside of the gym and not just the gym itself. So muscles can't grow without having enough fuel. So consistently eating too few calories or carbohydrates can reduce training performance and slow the recovery process needed for hypertrophy, or in other words, muscle gain itself. Protein, of course, is essential and is going to provide the building blocks for repair. So when you're meeting your daily protein needs to support muscle repair, or excuse me, support of course support muscle repair, but also the muscle protein synthesis process, this helps your body recover from challenging workouts. And then of course your sleep is going to be a major factor. So sleep is when much of your recovery happens. So during quality sleep, your body is repairing muscle tissue, restoring energy, and preparing you for the next training session. So making sure that you have quality sleep, having a proper sleep schedule is really going to matter in how you progress and is going to help in both the muscle gain side of things as well as the strength gaining side of things. And then, of course, that combined with your nutrition, when you have those elements all together and in line, is where you're really going to see results stack up more and more. So, the long term mindset that builds the best physique. So when we think about all of these different points when it comes to fitness, nutrition, recovery, all of these different points can be overwhelming when we think about them all together. But when it comes to progress in each of these, what we have to focus on is our consistency and our ability to gradually improve each of these different elements of our routine. Even if we're struggling with specific parts, like we're struggling with nutrition, maybe our overall workout routine itself, or recovery, all of these things don't have to be perfect at the start. What matters is that we're consistently correcting these, consistently improving on each of these different parts of our routine until we get everything aligned as we really want it to so that we can get results. So focus on consistency over intensity. So showing up week after week produces greater results than relying on occasional all-out training sessions. You do not have to go all out in your training sessions. What matters is that you're showing up, you're putting in the effort and getting through the workout. So master the fundamentals first, like with what I give clients when they start out. They always start out with stabilization based workouts, and it's more workouts that don't require a ton of weight but are first challenging basically the muscles in really being able to learn how to activate those muscles effectively, learning movement patterns. That's what you have to focus on first. So, progressive overload, proper technique, quality nutrition, adequate sleep, and recovery will always outperform chasing the latest fitness trend. So, measure progress in more than muscle size. Think about all of the different things outside of body weight, outside of your overall measurements themselves. Think about the improved performance you're having in workouts, or is your performance improving? Are you having better movement quality? Is your recovery increased? Are you more well rested in your routine? Are you able to go into your next workout with enough energy? And if you're having greater confidence, these are all, greater confidence in all these different points. These are all signs you're moving in the right direction. So don't just think about the overall physical metrics, but about how you feel as far as your performance, your movement quality, and what you're able to do in your workouts. So accept that progress isn't always linear. There's going to be ups and downs in a routine, and that plateaus, slower phases of growth, and temporary setbacks are normal parts of a long-term muscle development routine. So there are going to be ups and downs in your routine, but what matters is that you look at the bigger picture, that you look at how you've progressed, and that you are really paying attention on that gradual progression versus a small sort of lapse in your routine. Alrighty, guys, so that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. Again, if you do want to learn more about online fitness coaching, you can visit bponlinefitness.com where you can learn about more of what I have to offer. That link is, of course, on my Facebook profile. It is bponlinefitness.com. You just click on that link on my profile and it'll take you directly to my website. You can learn about online fitness coaching as well as check out some of the free resources I have where I discuss fitness, nutrition, recovery, all of those different points, and giving you guys really tangible advice that you can use, that you can take with you, and that you can make most of, which is free for you to access. So definitely check that out if that's something that you're interested in learning more about and you want to really better your routine. But with all that being said, guys, I really appreciate your time. I hope that this was helpful and valuable. If you do have any questions on anything I discussed here today, previous streams, feel free to let me know. But again, I will have another live stream next Wednesday. I'll be doing a live stream tomorrow on YouTube if you're not aware, so definitely check that out. But thank you guys once again for your time. I hope that this was helpful and valuable for you. And with all that being said, guys, I will see you guys next Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time in the next live stream. So thank you guys once again for watching.